Hello and welcome to the Noise on Dungeons & Dragons Online Part 2. What's happening here is I'm logging in with my new character, Fly Molo, App Molo, into the game. And the gist of it is you've just crash landed on this beach. You were on this flying boat ship, and you crash landed onto the beach. And here you are standing in front of Jeets. And there's going to be, of course, just like every game, these tooltips and such. Now, you may notice right off the bat when you're looking around that the graphics look a little bit blah. One thing that I will say, and this is another reason why I think that this game kind of flopped a little bit, is and continues to struggle with membership, even though it's done a lot better since the free-to-play. But the problem is that this game looks a lot better as you go. I mean, there's some really cool-looking zones, some really cool-looking dungeons. You're really not going to see them too much in the first 4 levels, which is really the easy part to do free. And after that, you gotta start getting into some know-how that you might not otherwise have. So at any rate, so we're moving around here, and we basically just have to get up this beach and to a dungeon. At any rate, you can see the graphics. They're not too bad, especially considering how old the game is. Now, the commands are basically the same as pretty much every other MMORPG out there, the WASD, space to jump. Now, you do press the left mouse button to swing your weapon. And so for melee combatants, a lot of what you're going to be doing in this game actually is just holding down the left mouse button and swinging away. That's how it works in Dungeons & Dragons Online. There's really no aim when you're close up, and it kind of almost randomly hits somebody in front of you. But if you hit the right button, actually, that is your aim. And so for distance, if you hold down the right button, your little cursor turns red, and then you click your left button to shoot your ranged weapon. So the right button actually is an aim if you hold that down. The left button swings. You can try and use your left button for targeting. It's not terribly easy. Tab targeting works sort of too, but it's really not about tab targeting in this game unless you're casting spells onto a specific character. And then pretty much everything else works like a normal game. Okay, so I'm talking to Jeets here, and he's going to give me this little quest to run up the beach to follow him along, and then he's going to give me a weapon and teach me how that works.
No one but you made it to the island alive.
Now that was the Dungeon Master, and every different instance has a Dungeon Master, and usually it's the same voice. This is actually, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, that's a completely new voice. They've revamped the starting area to try to make it a little bit easier as a tutorial. Personally, I don't think that they've helped themselves much with it. But at any rate, but there's a fairly standard voice, and a couple of dungeons have some different voices. But it's kind of cool because it kind of throws you into the whole Dungeons & Dragons thing, where it's like you have a dungeon master that's telling this story. Now the story here is basically you're on this you're in this place, or a Korthos island, and basically it's an island that's cursed by winter, and there's evil that's controlling all this stuff. It's kind of a typical story. The Dungeons & Dragons has what they call adventure packs in Dungeons & Dragons Online, which generally gives you a kind of an outdoor territory. And then along with that, it gives you like all these different instance dungeons that you can go to. Usually there will be 4 to maybe some of them have as much as like 10 dungeons, and plus a whole outdoor area. Now everything's instanced. There aren't a whole lot of... It is a hubbed game. There's like the marketplace is a hub, and there's a couple other places you can go where you'll run into a lot of people. But like where I am right now, it's just instanced, and so you'll never start with anybody else in this area trying to do stuff. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of run around here. I'm going to start breaking some of these crates and barrels and things. Anything that basically you can target and has a name you can interact with, whether it's just to break it. Breaking crates and barrels is a good way to get treasure, especially when you're starting out. You're going to need gold. Now see, those ones didn't have a name, so I can't interact with them. But this is a really good way to get gold, maybe a couple potions, whatever. See, there is 40 copper pieces. So I'll gladly grab that since I don't have any copper. And so we're just kind of run around and break everything we see as we complete this quest, which takes us up to the nearest dungeon. Okay, so I get up the path and I go into the dungeon here, and I only have the option to go in solo because this is a solo mode dungeon. There are very few of these in the game, but every once in a while you'll run across a dungeon that is designed specifically to be soloed, and this is one of them, which stands to reason since you don't have anybody with you. Now, as you could see, there were normal, hard, elite difficulties, and I'll get into those a little bit more later on. So there are some load screens. They don't generally take too terribly long. Now I will take this opportunity to say that this game does a really great job of translating the feel of the pen and paper Dungeons & Dragons in that you really do, and this is why I really don't mind the hub thing in this game at all, and the fact that everything's instanced. Because you really do feel like you're assigned a mission, somebody in a bar says, hey, I need you to go do this for me, and then you go on this great adventure, and then you come back. I mean, that's kind of what Dungeons & Dragons is all about, and that's what this is all about. Dungeons & Dragons Pen and Paper is really not about open world exploring. It's about dungeons and castles and things like that, and that's really what this is all about. And so I think they've done a really great job of translating. It's also an excellent game for a group of friends. If you've got a group of friends that you play with on a regular basis, and especially like if you've got a group of friends that even like the pen and paper, maybe they do some gaming online, this is, in my opinion, a really great game for a group of friends. It's really meant to be teamed, and it does a great job. Now what we're looking at here is we're looking at experience points, and I'll show this some later too, but you get your base XP for every mission, and then you get other things that can enhance and increase the score on the mission. So like first time completing solo difficulty right here is a 25%. In other words, if I come back and redo this, which you can always redo anything as much as you want, if I come back and redo it, I'm not going to get that extra 25% bonus, so it'll be worth more the first time. I could get bonuses for secret doors discovered, breakables smashed, especially in early dungeons, not so much in later dungeons. It's a real good idea to break everything you see because you actually do get XP bonus. As long as I have no deaths in this particular one, I'll get a 10% bonus for that. No re-entries, that means I leave, maybe rest, and come back. And so right now, if everything stays this way, I'll have 440 XP by the end of this, but I might get more than that because I might get a breakable bonus or a bonus for finding secret doors or disarming traps or what have you. Alright, so Salimus here is going to continue my journey and give me another little quest, and I'm going to go through this door, and I'm going to meet my team, and then we're going to do some stuff. Okay, so I'm actually getting ready for my very first combat here, which is oh so very exciting. Let's see. Going into some sneak mode so I can do a little bit of backstabbing. I get a backstab bonus here. And I didn't get a backstab bonus here. Maybe that comes later. Oh, whatever. We'll take a look at that at a later time. But generally speaking, you do get like a backstab bonus if you're behind someone or if they're not defending you. Which, by the way, brings up some combat tactics too in this game, which is if you get hit from behind, it's the same deal. If monsters hit you from behind, it hurts a lot worse. So it's a good idea, especially when you're soloing, you're fighting multiple mobs. You kind of want to be up against a wall or what have you. You want to be very careful where you're fighting, how you're fighting, because all the rules apply to you just like they do to somebody else. You'll get hurt worse if you're hit from behind. Now, by the way, all of this stuff actually moves. All of the like the mini-map moves. The everything in the interface is movable, which is pretty cool. I'm looking at my rusty rapier here in this moment. It's showing me my damage, 1d6, and then a -1 to pierce because it sucks. So I actually have a 0 to 5. And so it's based on rolls, just like Dungeons & Dragons. Every time I swing it, it basically rolls for me, and if I hit, then I roll a 6-sided dice to do my 1d6 damage, -1 to whatever the result is. This is where you can kind of see in the details what your damage is and what you can do. And then it shows you like your blocking, your armor class, and such and so on. And so it's all based totally on rolls, just like the Dungeons & Dragons rule set. And you get little dice in the corner. Mine have been a little bit covered up here. I'll fix that presently. But you get dice in the corner that roll and show you what your roll actually is. You can keep attempting things too, like when you're trying to spot secret doors or whatever. You can keep attempting them if you want. If you didn't like your roll, and see if you get a better roll. If you're trying to heal someone or revive someone who's knocked down and unconscious, you can try and get a better roll. Now, by the way, this is an abnormal. This is the opening dungeon, of course, but it's an abnormal one in that normally you don't have people in the dungeon that are helping you out. Normally you have nobody with you, it's just you. And you can actually get mercenaries and stuff to help you out when you're soloing if you want. Now notice we're getting ambushed here, so that's kind of cool. Also, you can see over there on the right there's a little ladder. Ladders are interactive. You can climb up any ladders. You can get to anywhere by climbing up a ladder, what have you. So here we are. Oh, did you see? You saw when I was fighting that guy maybe that there was an extra damage. First off, you see my dice in the corner. It says 8 + 1.
There are more of them up there.
Okay, so that was my damage roll. But there was an extra damage, and we'll see that here in a moment too, because I'm backstabbing, because I'm not fighting the guy straight on. So it gives me an extra damage roll. See if it happens. Yeah, the 2 and the 5, 6 and the 11 at the same time. That means he wasn't facing me and I was getting the extra damage. Again, same thing happens to you if someone can hit you from behind. So you don't want people surrounding you in this game at all. Okay, so here we're looking at a rest, and rests are pretty important. Rests are kind of your lifeline in Dungeons & Dragons Online. That's a rest and also a resurrect shrine. Now, you'll run across these in dungeons and even out in the open wilds sometimes, and basically what happens is in Dungeons & Dragons, if you'll notice, my health has 25 of 27. That's never going to increase out in a dungeon or what have you. It's not going to increase. I need to use the rest to get my health back up. So now the problem is if I'm playing a dungeon in like easy mode, I can rest like every 10 minutes or something. But if I go to harder elite, I can only use it once per dungeon. So it becomes really important that you're managing your health and your mana. Well, it's not mana, spell points. If you have spell points, you have to be managing those wisely, because once you run out, you run out. And if you don't have a rest available, you're hosed. So potions are always helpful, but rests are much needed. Also, special skills like my Dragon Mark, that has 3 uses. And once those 3 uses are gone, it's gone until I rest, and then I get 3 more. A lot of items will come with a particular spell that you can cast because you have the item, and they'll have a certain number of uses. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and go along here, and I'm not going to show all of this. You see where it says spot danger there? That's my spot skill. It's always going to let you spot the danger in this particular one. But that is my spot skill, and then what I do is search, and that's on the search skill, and that's going to reveal the panel with which I can disable a device, which is my disable skill. So if I don't have a good spot skill, it's not going to warn me that there's a trap nearby and I can run right into it. On the flip side, I could have a great spot skill, but I don't have enough search skill to be able to find the control panel or the trap in the first place. So I might know it's there, I might not be able to find it. Or if I fail wretchedly trying to disable a device, it can actually completely blow up, and then you have no choice but to just go through the trap. So at any rate, that's kind of how that works, and gives you some more ideas about skills and how skills work. Okay, so I'm just going to show you kind of the end of the mission here. I'm going to splice it up a bit. But basically at the end of most missions you get a chest, and the chest will have some rewards. Sometimes they're really helpful to you, sometimes they're not. Now all of these rewards are for me. And if I had party members, if I was in a partying dungeon, and I had team members, then they would get their own rewards. I'd get mine, they'd get theirs, so there's no reason to roll for loot or whatever. And so, like, I have this Ember Shortbow, and then it's going to tell me the stats on it, what it does, the extra stuff. Here's a ring of water breathing with 1 charge per day, so that I can breathe underwater for a significant time. I can equip that, which I'm doing now, so that it's on, and then, so that's kind of how that works. Also, I have arrows there. The arrows need to be equipped, and so it works kind of like most old-school games in terms of equipping. Now, one thing I should probably note, too, is Like, for instance, you need to have whatever weapon you plan on using equipped. You can't carry both a bow and a melee weapon like you can in a lot of games. So you need to switch them. But what you can do to switch them is you can actually put them into your action bar. And you can switch during combat. It's not a problem. It takes a turn, but you can do it. And turns go by so fast in this game. You're playing in a... It really is kind of a turn-based like Dungeons & Dragons, but it goes so fast. It's very smooth. You're never going to think of it as a turn-based. So at any rate, so you can switch them at any time during combat. And that just by putting them in your action bar, so that works. You can also make weapon sets and such. You can get into that, but and that way you can put the action set into your action bar in case you're switching to like a dual wield thing from a bow or what have you. Another thing that I should note about equipment while I'm talking about it is stats don't stack. And that's, I guess, more than just equipment. And here, by the way, I'm kind of dealing with my bars. Like I'd mentioned earlier, everything's movable, so I'm kind of reshaping my bars and dealing with them and putting powers in appropriate places. But at any rate, stats are important to keep in mind. Like, for instance, if you get something with a 2 intelligence, and then you get something with a 3 intelligence, you're not going to get 5 intelligence total. You're going to get the greater of the 2. So, like, let's say I have one that's 2 intelligence, and then I find one that's 1 intelligence, and then also has something else. Like, maybe I find a shield that's 1 intelligence, plus it has a plus something. You know, maybe it's sacred. Maybe it does something against evil creatures, or maybe it turns undead better, or whatever the case may be. The stats won't stack, so I have to decide, well, do I want to lose the 1 intelligence and just go down to the plus 1 intelligence from the plus 2? If I have 2 things of plus 2 intelligence, it makes it completely worthless. It makes the whole idea worthless. So you can kind of make your equipment obsolete since stats don't stack. Now notice up at the top right it says recall. My mission is about to complete here. And that recall button will take me out of the dungeon or out of the area that I'm in. Now most of the time I get the quest reward. I get the quest reward actually after the fact. After I'm out of the dungeon, I go back to the quest giver. In this case, this is one of the few exceptions, and I'm getting it in the dungeon. And so I basically have to decide which weapon I want. Now, these are going to give me like +1 fire damage and stuff. Pretty much all of these will give the +1 fire damage, which means it's automatically going to do its damage, and then it's going to give an automatic +1. Now, the Great Ember Axe I'm not proficient at. Same with the crossbow. Those are options for me only if I plan on multi-classing or doing something that I will get proficient in them. Which actually, my next class is probably going to be a fighter at level 2. I'm probably going to spec into fighter, so that Great Ember Axe actually would likely be an option. I think I'm going to take the Ember Longsword here so I can use it right away, but I might regret that later. At any rate, what's going to happen up in the top right when I finish this is that's going to switch from recall to finish anytime you're finished with a dungeon. Once it's finished, it's finished. You usually can't earn any more XP after that. You can always click that XP button to see how much you've earned in the meantime, and even after it's finished, you can know how much. I don't know if you've noticed, but I haven't gained any XP while I've been fighting along. See, I only gain the XP at the end. If there happen to be killing rewards where you have to kill an X amount of Sawagan in order to gain more XP, well, that's an award that happens when you finish the dungeon, and not until then. So you get no XP until you finish things. Now, out in the world, it'll actually have random things that you can do, like finding explorer areas, finding areas that are hard to find, or killing X number of things, or killing a rare spawn. But those are all very specific things that you get XP for. In general, in dungeons, you will not get any XP until the dungeon is finished, and then it's added up for you. So that's kind of it for this first part, and the next one we'll go on to in the intermediate gameplay, a little bit higher level stuff. We'll go on to kind of how the quest system works in towns, take a look at the maps and stuff, and we'll also take a look at how to leveling and what you get, and the ranking system. Yes, levels 1 through 20, that's all it goes to. It's about to expand to 25, but currently Dungeons & Dragons Online only goes to 20. 20 in Dungeons & Dragons Online is about the equivalent of 100 in most other games. So I'll talk about the ranks and the levels. Don't think that this game is short or easy to get to 20, because it certainly is not. But that's it for this video, for the introduction, and thank you very much for watching. Tune in next time, and have a great day.